Okay, so to continue my presentation, I'll start with breastfeeding rates. So, I guess over the decades, breastfeeding rates have been slowly increasing, and the Healthy People 2010 objectives called for 75% of women to initiate breastfeeding, 50% to breastfeed for the first 6 months, and 25% to breastfeed for a year. And the most recent data from 2007 showed that 75% of women initiated breastfeeding. So that goal of initiating was met for the objectives. For that year, 43% breastfed for 6 months and 22% for the first year. And of those breastfed in 2007, only about a third were exclusively breastfed for 3 months and 13% for 6 months. So disparities do exist in breastfeeding, and we've been discussing disparities a lot in this class. And it's important to understand disparities and where they exist in order to more effectively target them. So for breastfeeding, disparities exist between different races and socioeconomic classes. So rates for black infants are 50% lower than white infants at birth, 6 months, and a year. And this is thought to be due to the fact that African American women return to work sooner than white women. And that makes breastfeeding more difficult just because breastfeeding in the workplace is just difficult in general, and I will discuss that later in this presentation. And the disparities exist also between different socioeconomic classes, and that is regardless of race. So socioeconomic status is associated with breastfeeding rates regardless of the race, and race is associated with breastfeeding rates regardless of socioeconomic status. So to begin with the different barriers that women have to face when it comes to breastfeeding, first is just a general lack of knowledge. So many women just aren't aware of the benefits of breastfeeding, like the health benefits or the economic or all those that I discussed earlier. And many aren't aware of the risks, not only for the infant but for themselves. And so most women are not informed about breastfeeding by their obstetricians. Many women believe formula to be the equivalent of breast milk, which it is not. It is it's just a substitute. If breast milk just isn't an option, it's not an equivalent. Women are oftentimes confused on how to breastfeed. So I guess for a first-time mother, it can be intimidating, breastfeeding for their first time, and maybe if they don't get it right the first time or they just have trouble with it, it can be a bit discouraging. Yeah, so some women view breastfeeding as inconvenient because they have to give up certain lifestyle habits, like smoking, going out and drinking, maybe doing different drugs also. Social norms. Women who immigrate to the U.S. see bottle feeding as a norm here. And so bottle feeding or formula feeding as a norm here. And so when they come here, they do that. Some women believe that bigger babies are healthier, and they formula feed for this reason. Some women have the misconception that feeding an infant both formula and breast milk is the best of both, because they believe the infant gets the like the vitamins or minerals from the formula and not the breast milk, which is not true. Another barrier would be poor support. Studies have shown that positive support can encourage women to breastfeed, and then negative attitudes between, friends or family members can definitely discourage women from wanting to breastfeed. And I thought this was interesting. Studies have shown that the father's support is an important factor when it comes to a mother's decision to breastfeed. So embarrassment, this might be the most obvious barrier, something that most people hear about. A poll done in 2001 showed that only 43% of people believe women have the right to breastfeed in public. This number has probably changed. I would like to think that it has increased since 2001. So women, generally, they just report feeling uncomfortable breastfeeding in public, perhaps because they get shamed by others who are maybe a bit more conservative or prudish. And this is most likely due to the fact that breasts are extremely sexualized by the media. They're not portrayed as being something that is natural or something that is nurturing or motherly. They're portrayed as sexual objects. So when a woman, pulls out her breast to breastfeed in public, other people see this as inappropriate, maybe, and they have a problem with it and could perhaps shame the woman, and that would discourage the woman from wanting to breastfeed in public. All right.